Hello, and welcome to a very special mini-sode, like after-school special, level of special, of this podcast, My Streaming Bubble. And this is where I usually talk about the shows I love with the people I tolerate. I'm Jen, your host, and like I said, today's episode is going to be a bit different, and it's because I'm joined by three very lovely, very tolerable ladies. But we won't be talking about any specific show or movie or actor or character. But instead, we're going to talk about when fans are let down by the actions of their favorite writers, directors, actors, musicians, and anyone in between. Carla, Laura, and as soon as I saw the names laid out right next to each other, I was like, oh, this isn't going to end well. Carla.
Say it really fast now.
No.
Yeah, right?
Carla, Laura, and Paula are here to talk about the separation of the art and the artist. So, hello, ladies. Thank you for joining me for this probably likely intense and maybe loud discussion. I'm excited, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. So if you guys just want to go around real quick and introduce yourselves, and if there's anything you want to promote, go ahead and let us know. And I can give you that chance to drop any socials or anything at the end of the episode. So we'll do like my podcast Brain Twin, and we'll start alphabetically, but we're not necessarily going to stay alphabetically because I know what it's like coming in after Carla and she takes all your thoughts.
I'm the thought thief.
You are. Ooh. I kind of like that. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you. Hi. Yes, I am Carla Temis. I am frequently on It's a Fandom Thing pod. I am less frequently here on My Streaming Bubble. And I am most frequently going to be on my own podcast because it would be weird if I wasn't on it. It's called Okay Real Quick, and you can find it. I guess you're going to find out where you can find it because the first episode releases soon, and I don't know where it's going to go. You'll just look for Okay Real Quick pod, and you'll either find it or you won't.
That is so awesome and exciting. And
I am so organized.
Hey, I am right there with you. I'm like organized, like, what is it called? Chaos, but like.
Yes, organized chaos.
Yes. It is what it's
Best
called.
kind.
Wow. Oh my goodness. All right. And Laura, welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a while for all of you ladies. So thank you so much. But yes, Laura, hi. Hello.
Yeah, I might have forgotten how to do this. I don't know. I'm Laura, the OG tolerable. I haven't been doing a lot of podcasting lately, like for fun, but I have been doing some for work. I have a recurring Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day series at work, and I also got to have a huge rock star moment where I got to interview Denise Schreier-Jacobson from Crip Camp.
I think you did tell me about that.
Amazing experiences of my life. Please watch Crip Camp if you can. It's on Netflix and I think YouTube now as well.
Oh, nice. And then you guys can listen to the podcast episode Laura and I did about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fantastic. That's awesome. And Paula, hi. I think it's been like Bridgerton long.
Yes, I think that was my first time on the podcast with you and Meg.
Yes.
So I'm back. Hi. Like Carla, I also am sometimes on It's a Fandom Thing, and I also have a podcast along with Aaron, who is the host of It's a Fandom Thing, and Moth, who's also on the show occasionally. We talk about our favorite fictional character, Dean Winchester, on It's a Dean Thing, which you can listen to wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. So that's me, and where you can hear me on other things.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys, all of you, it's been forever, and I need to do better about not making sure that doesn't happen again. So, but until then, like I said, we're going to be talking about like when the artist turns out to be a piece of shit, but you maybe have had like a very strong attachment connection to their works. And the reason for this is because over the last several years, and I mean forever really, but it feels like especially more recently, we seem to be finding out more and more of our favorites being trash. Some are surprising, some not so much, and some are surprisingly disappointing. And some just keep doubling down on being a piece of shit because they don't know how to shut their fucking mouth. So what do we do when our faves that have created works that have a deeper importance to us have what we may feel like betrayed us? Is there ever a redemption possible? How do we separate that art from the artist? So these are the things we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking likely mostly about Neil Gaiman and J.K. Rowling, and probably whomever else that we need to discuss. Like I know there's Josh Whedon and who was the other one? Kevin Spacey. But here is your content warning. Considering the people we are going to be discussing, it's for everything at this point. Sexual assault, gaslighting, transphobia, bullying, blaming your shitty behavior on mental illness when that's not what it's causing it. Doing gross, weird shit in front of your kid, gross, weird sex stuff in front of your fucking kid. Ugh. All right. There, I got it out.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. So, Laura, we'll start with you this time. I guess, how do you feel about and how do you do separating the art from the artist as, because I know you're a Harry Potter fan.
Yeah. It's really difficult. I feel like it's mental gymnastics and, I'm not very good at gymnastics. But I really want to find a way to be able to do that because the art itself, was a snapshot of where that author was at that point in their lives. And maybe they weren't so awful then. We don't really know. People change, right? Or maybe they were and they're finally enabled by their billions of dollars. Who knows? But I struggle with Harry Potter so much because it changed so many people's lives. People read messages of tolerance and acceptance and all of that in those stories and embraced that and embodied that. And then the author comes out and is decisively intolerant. And it makes you wonder, how can they rationalize that for themselves? How can they reconcile that to be so intolerant and yet to write so much the other way? And Neil Gaiman's kind of the same way. How many times have his stories framed his characters as champions of women's rights, or at least people who have, realized their mistakes in some way or another. And then for these stories to come out, it's like they're wanting so badly to be the opposite of who they are. It's both fascinating and disappointing.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And Paula, how about you?
It's so disheartening because you have these people that have created something meaningful, and you have, fans that look up to them. They look up to them personally, and that kind of plays in a little to that kind of parasocial relationship between, the artists and fans. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really a fan of Harry Potter but I know how meaningful it is to a lot of people because people literally have grown up with those books, started reading them as children and have grown up with them. And they're very special and very important to those folks. I'm coming at it a little bit more from the Neil Gaiman side, where not only did I enjoy his work, but I also followed him on social media and really enjoyed his engagement with the fandom and with, all of those, those interactions. And it really kind of goes to show that you really don't know who's behind the keyboard, who's behind the camera, who's behind, whatever it is that you're looking at. And it's just, it really kind of almost makes you want to be more cautious going forward with other artists, because who's going to be next? You know, it really kind of puts that in my mind of, well, just, you know, I think back to, like, my favorite fandom is Supernatural and Star Wars. If the people that were behind those two fandoms, it turned out that they were horrible people, that would be heartbreaking. And it would really, no matter how special those fandoms are, those properties are, it would really make it hard to ever look at them again. And I understand how hard it is, especially, again, for the Harry Potter fandom. You know, so many people are so heartbroken about that. And how do you know, it is really hard to know how to move forward with that. And it's just, can people just stop being assholes? I mean, it's that simple. Why? The money and the fame and all of that doesn't give you a license to be an asshole and to be horrible people and do these terrible things. And, you know, looking at, because I was a huge fan of Good Omens. That was actually my first exposure to Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And I watched the first season of the show. I've read the book many times. I love it. Watched the first season, was really excited for the second season. I still have not watched the second season because by the time I was getting around to doing it, the allegations came out. It's like, I don't want to have anything to do with this person. I love the other people in the show, but is that enough? You know, it's a really hard question to, and I think it's a very individual one for each person. They have to weigh, you know, how they want to, you know, move forward with those things. It's a really, yeah, it's really tough.
It's tricky. It's as
really
a
is.
coworker of ours used to say, it's a sticky wicket. Carla, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have many thoughts. Well,
What?
to start, there's the question of, you know, why are we so invested in people to the point where they break our heart like this? And I think generally it doesn't start with the person. It starts with their art and with whatever it is that touches our soul. And then we become invested in the person because, you know, this is the person who made me feel something. So I think it's just such a very strange link that we form with complete strangers. And it's not something that you can really dismiss just because it's that. You know, the fact that it's a complete stranger who just created something that resonates with you, it doesn't make them any less powerful in your heart. So when they do something that is so jarring or that is so contrary to your values, it is a huge letdown. And I think the longer that you admire somebody, the longer that you believe that what they're putting out is out there because it's a good person, the more it hurts. So with everybody who is so hurt by the Neil Gaiman things, and listen, I wasn't a huge Neil Gaiman fan myself, but I followed him on Twitter. And the things that he said there just were really, I thought, insightful and meaningful. And I became a fan of his, not so much through his work, but through his words. And, you know, when you see somebody who is so famous, who is saying all of these things that can potentially put him in the crosshairs of more powerful people, you think, wow, this must be a really good person who is standing up for important things and is putting their career on the line. And then you find out about the allegations against him. And it's just like, this is the complete opposite of what you said about the world. You have been supposedly such a strong champion for women and for women's rights. And yet here you are engaging in, to not put it in 4D, in 4K, as the kids say, engaging in behavior that is the complete opposite of what you're saying. And all of the allegations that his accusers have made about him are all so, they're so jarring. It's so, it's hard to read. And then when he comes out and defends himself and he presents all of these text messages as if that is more, as if that really means something. If somebody is texting you about something that you're accusing them of doing and you're the person in power, you're the person who, for one of his accusers, she was living with him and or his ex at the time. She was dependent on them for food and shelter, for stability. So I really, if she's texting you, things that you think support your position, I'm not really going to put much stock into that because she's in a precarious position. With somebody like J.K. Rowling, with these two particular people, I'm coming at this a bit sideways because I read the first Harry Potter book. And I wasn't particularly drawn to reading the rest of them. I did watch the movies, though. And I enjoyed the movies. But my husband is a huge Harry Potter fan. And, okay, so he would listen to the audiobooks to fall asleep. So then that means that I would listen to the audiobooks to fall asleep. And so I became very, very well acquainted with the world of Harry Potter because I was listening to them every night. And then our son was born, and he, one of the first big things that he read was the Harry Potter series. And from our point of view, the way that we're dealing with it with our son is that, we've told him our stance on J.K. Rowling. We've told him she's a horrible person. She has said these things about people. And we don't agree with that. We think that, looking into the text of what she has written, where there are those instances that crop up, because, me passively listening to it, or even my husband listening to it, we don't always catch every little nuance of everything because you're so immersed in the world that, first of all, if you're so immersed in something, you might be willing to kind of, as you're absorbing it, give it a pass. Mm-hmm. But when you go back and you recontextualize a lot of things, especially through people who have done the work to really explain to you why it's problematic, it's kind of made us very aware of it. And we tell our son, okay, so as you're reading this, you're going to encounter this scene and this is what happens. And this is the subtext. And this is why we don't agree with that. So just so that he's aware, look, I can't pull this out of your brain. You know what I mean? Like I can't pull it out of your heart, but just be aware. Be aware of this is what's going on in her mind as she's writing this. And that's a very hard thing as a parent because, you want your kids to read. You want your kids to become absorbed in something other than a video game or other than, I don't know. There's so many things that so many hobbies that kids engage in that are less, I think, helpful to them than reading. So I don't want to destroy his love of reading, but I don't want him to think that we're condoning this author or who she really is. Aside from who she presents herself to be. She presents herself to be a champion of women, but it's at the expense of other women because trans women are women. So for her to say otherwise, well, she can go to hell because she's just very plainly incorrect. And she's coming at it from a stance of hatred and of kind of gatekeeping womenness. But nobody but herself made her the arbiter of womenness, so she can just go burn somewhere.
So can I just point something out here?
Yes.
Like, you said she positions herself as a champion of women. And it's funny because, like, in the Harry Potter books, all of the main characters that are special are men.
Yeah. Because
So
Hermione,
is she really? Or, is she her
right,
own brand of misogynist?
she is, because, in her own world of Harry Potter, and, thankfully, the, the love of the world of Harry Potter ended with the Harry Potter series and it didn't move into the other stuff. But the way that she depicts Hermione, if you're looking at it from a superficial level, which is, I think, what most of us do, she's a very strong character. She's very smart and she's always the one who comes up with the solutions. But in the end, it's really everybody telling her to shut up and to stop being so smart and to kind of,
Or it's all in the service of the male characters.
right, right. But she thinks that she's a giant feminist. J.K. Rowling truly believes that she is championing women and that Hermione is, that you can't speak about Hermione being anything but a feminist icon character.
I'm thinking about it as you're talking, and I'm starting to believe that these authors draw their inspiration from who they wish they were or who they've somehow convinced themselves that they are.
Right.
Because maybe they can't face who they really are. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of self-insert in that with, certainly with Neil Gaiman. But if you look at somebody like Joss Whedon, who even in the Buffyverse put himself on the screen as Xander. Xander, and he has even said that Xander is a representative of himself. So he sees himself in that world through Xander. And, I guess everybody hates Xander. But yeah, like all of these people insert themselves into these worlds in a way that they think paint them very favorably.
As soon as I heard about the Neil Gaiman allegations, I immediately thought of Calliope. Because it's done as a short on the Sandman series on Netflix, from the books as well. And Paula, like you, so for me, I was late to the Neil Gaiman party, and then I caught the fuck up as best as I could in quite a short amount of time. And it all started with Good Omens. I saw the trailer. I loved it. I mean, David Tennant, Michael Sheen, come on, John Hamm, come on. And so I listened to the audiobook and just like burned right through it. And it was so good. And then from there, kind of snowballed and I read as much as I could. So I don't have as much of attachment to Neil or his works. I followed him on Twitter. He was, great online presence. But after all the allegations, I'm just like, you're the fucking piece of shit dude. I don't want to say Rory, but every time I see Arthur Darvill, I'm just it's Rory. My kids call him finger guns because of Doctor Who, because he had literal finger guns. The man who kept dying.
Poor Rory.
Poor Rory. Absolutely poor Rory.
Look, I'm glad that his portrayal in Calliope did not ruin Rory in Doctor Who for anyone here, because it could have.
It could have, but he's an actor and he was playing a role, and I was like, nope, that's not Rory. Or it was, I think maybe the first time it was more like, see, Rory, this is what happens when you're left alone too long without the doctor or without Amy. Now look at the fucked up pickle you got yourself into. But like, that was the first thing I thought of. And I was like, oh, so, like you ladies were saying, it's like a reflection of who he is or who he wants to be. That's kind of now how I see it. And with Good Omens, I did watch the second season. I'm also torn about the third and final. And I'm also kind of torn about season 2 of The Sandman. I enjoyed both of them. And I probably will still watch at least Sandman I'll probably still watch both. And in my mind, I'm rationalizing it as I'm supporting the other people, the writers, the director. But there's still just kind of an ick taste in my mouth from that. Because I'm like, yes, I'm supporting
definitely.
them, but I'm supporting them through your work. And you're gross.
See, where
Mhm.
the heartbreak happens for me is the stories themselves. I don't get very attached to authors or actors or musicians or anything. I get attached to their work. But when, in Neil Gaiman's case, they're being dragged through their own misdeeds and handling it poorly, or in J.K. Rowling's case, where she's doing it to herself, either way, it ends up sort of ruining the nostalgia of the art, the innocence that came with it, the this was like a pure message that you were reading, you were watching, whatever the case may be, that spoke to you in a way, but now you find out that it was some sort of metaphorical demon whispering it to you. I mean, that changes how you hear it, right? And I hate feeling that way about art that I've enjoyed so much. Like, I've had a very traumatic life, so these things really spoke to me. And I imagine it's that way for a lot of people. And, if learning these truths about the architects of this art, these stories and everything, ruins those stories for you, what fills that void? But then on the other side of it, like, you're talking how, Carla, you're talking how you've kind of coached your son through reading Harry Potter and what the subtext might be in certain scenarios. That is definitely the responsible thing to do, but does it take away from the magic that was once there? And then, at the same time, it's not like the notion of a really bad person did something really great is new. I mean, if you just want to look at authors, like, look at Jules Verne. I pick on him because he has his own building on the Epic campus in Verona.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's cool, but I'm like, okay, that guy was like grade A piece of shit. But what, has it been long enough now that we can push that aside and just appreciate his works of art for what they are? Does that mean, 50 years from now or more, people will forget what JK tweeted about and just appreciate Harry Potter for what it is again? Like, I just don't know how it's all going to play out.
That's a really interesting question, and I really, really like it, because now we are being in the world, in the age of social media and the digital age. That shit is forever. So there's no running from that. Jules Verne, it's like, at this point, you can kind of, I guess, more or less pick and choose and just focus more on the positive stuff, because we don't have the screenshots of the horrible things, right? Like we do now. So it will be very, very interesting to see how all of that plays out. And, when we talk about having that attachment to the work or the art, I always think about years ago, Will Wheaton had penned like an open letter, I think kind of around the time JK started running her fucking mouth. And because people were struggling with it. They're like, Harry Potter meant a lot to me. How do I, reconcile this? And I loved his point that despite, and I'm paraphrasing and I'm probably going to do it poorly, but despite who that person ended up being, like that author, if their work meant something to you in a time of your life where you needed something like that, don't let them being a piece of shit take that away from you. And I absolutely love that. And I appreciate that. I think it can sometimes be easier said than done, because I think we all still might have a little bit of a struggle with it, but I love that. And then, then there's the question, like, how much time needs to pass before we forgive and forget? Chris Brown, Michael Vick, Mel Gibson, fucking every other fucking dude in existence have all done terrible things and, got caught and everything. And then just laid low long enough to come back, and everyone's like, yeah, it's fine. They're great. Whatever. No big deal. That was forever ago. It's like,
Right.
no.
And see, with stuff like that, I feel like, well, there are several components to it. First of all, at what point in their life were they? Mm-hmm. Because I don't believe that every human who does something bad is irredeemable. I don't think that we have to forgive them, especially if we were directly affected by something that they did. But I don't think that taking away the possibility of somebody recovering, bouncing back from that and becoming a good person is off the table. Because then, you follow that line of thought and it takes you into the carceral state where it's like, okay, people who go to jail can never be redeemable. They must always be seen as their crime. From a moral standpoint, what do they do? How do they behave after that? And have they shown sincere contrition? Have they contributed to the world in a way that doesn't erase what they did, but where they're trying to make the world better despite what they've done? So somebody like Michael Vick, I think, who was very young, who was brought up in a culture where dogfighting wasn't seen as something wrong, but has since then, I believe he founded a charity to rescue dogs and has done, and has very publicly shown contrition. I think that that's somebody that I can't myself hold him as an awful person for the rest of his life. Somebody like Chris Brown, who has not shown contrition and who has not shown change, I don't see as somebody who has been redeemed. There are all of these different things at play. But then for us as individuals, with somebody like Chris Brown, the song No Air is ruined for me forever, which sucked because, first of all, Jordan Sparks did not deserve to catch strays. It was her song that he featured on, but now I can't hear it. I can't listen to No Air, which I used to love, but now it's like that song, I can't have it on anymore. And then the two other things that I think about are, okay, once the person is no longer living and they're no longer directly enriching themselves from that art, how do we interact with it? Because somebody like Jules Verne, somebody like Michael Jackson, how do we engage with what they've put into this world that are things that are positive because they've made a positive contribution to people's lives? Michael Jackson is not alive to reap the financial benefits of his estate. So I feel like I still, have a hard time listening to some of his stuff, but there's music that is very meaningful to me that I can't quite throw out of my life. And then the last component is how to engage with each other after these things. So if our friend is still watching movies by Roman Polanski, how do we engage with that? Because I don't think that we can really, just in general, I don't think that we can really hold people to the same exact standards as us. There are certainly a lot of ways in which we can, if we don't share the same values, then why are we even talking? But there are other things like, okay, you're listening to a song by Chris Brown. Chris Brown is a piece of crap. I don't know how I feel about you after learning that you're listening to Chris Brown. But at what point does it become a deal breaker? And at what point do we see the people, like our actual flesh and blood people, in a different light based on that. And in there is so much nuance in that, because I really don't think that we can hold each other to the exact same standards. Otherwise, we can never be around people, because nobody will ever match your values exactly. Mm-hmm. But there are certainly things where we can draw a line for ourselves and say, I'm not comfortable sharing thoughts with you because I know this about you. And there are times when you can be like, yes, okay, but you're still very important to me because of these other things that we share. So, there are just so many components to this beyond just, what do I think about this person now that they have had these allegations made against them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you might have hit on a potential solution there. Like, if you're going to continue to experience the art that this person creates, find a way to do it where you're not contributing to their bank balance.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way to do it.
Because for us, my son is reading the same books that my husband owned before J.K. Rowling started tweeting. The audiobooks are audiobooks that my husband bought long before all of that. Mm-hmm. Anything else that we have, things, he's been gifted Harry Potter things, but we're not personally contributing our money to it. Mm-hmm. And he knows fully well that, okay, you got this puzzle set. Enjoy the puzzles. Joanne is trash.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you all a question?
Yeah.
Are you why people, like, if you get these stories, do you want to understand why the people are like this, like why they do the things that they do? That's my motivator in trying to strike a balance here. To that point, for Neil Gaiman, after these allegations came out and these articles came out and really went into detail about it, I went and read The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Are you familiar with that story?
Mm-mm. No.
So it's one of his more recent books that he wrote. And it's obviously fantastical, so not entirely accurate in terms of real world application. However, it is very much him trying to explain why he is broken the way that he is broken. So I felt compelled to read it. And it was the most jarring experience because I'm like, oh God, I love the way he writes. I love the voice that he creates, the way that he uses words. It's beautiful. It paints pictures so vividly, which is important for me because I can't visualize things the way people do. So, like, the way that words are strung together help me where my own mind is deficient. So there was that piece of it that I was trying to reconcile with myself. But you know what? I came away from that book and I was like, that is bullshit. It's beautiful, beautiful bullshit. Like, you know that saying, I think I found this saying in an Australian show. I used to live in Australia. You can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. That's what that was.
Oh, I like that.
I love it.
Because
I'm going to write that down.
The excuses that were woven into this otherwise beautiful story were so lacking. Like, yes, there's this dark part of you that you can never quite heal. And, it drives you to make these decisions that are wrong and then live with the consequences. And I'm just like,
that is so Dexter and his dark passenger coded. It's like,
I know. I was like, motherfucker. I understand that your life was probably really fucked up considering you grew up in a Scientology-based household.
But
I've had a really fucked up life. And I don't do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you not know that what you are doing is wrong? How can you excuse your actions because of something that happened to you? Like, it is not eye for an eye. It is not do unto others what's been done to you. Like, you have to do better. And the thing is, we hold our celebrities to a higher standard, whether we should or not. And authors that make it to this level of notoriety are celebrities, and they are held to a standard, especially when not only through their work, but through how they portray themselves to the public on social media or in person, suggests that they are this type of person to aspire to. And that's the part that I think gets you, is that they have let you down because they have not lived up to what they've painted themselves to be. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I am so tired of falling for people's masks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. You brought up a interesting point with the Jules Verne connection. It's like we tend to look at past authors or filmmakers or actors or artists of whatever kind, and we kind of view them with a different lens because it was a different time, things were different then, it was more acceptable, so we kind of tend to give that a pass in some respects, which I don't think we necessarily should. But also, because social media wasn't around then, I think it's a lot easier to forget. Or in my case, like I didn't know that about Jules Verne, so now it's like, oh, okay. Again, you would kind of wonder, well, okay, who else is like that you didn't know? That was just a straight up just a terrible person,
right?
And I think it's a lot easier though to view those past authors because we don't have as much of, like we do now with celebrities, of that social media presence. We didn't have that with them. So maybe it was a little bit more hidden. So it's like, okay, so every time I find something, am I going to have, do you start having to dig into the person behind it? And it'll be, like you said, Laura, it'll be interesting in a few years' time. Are we gonna like be just as lax on holding people accountable of the people today that we are of people in the past, because we literally give them pass of, as a whole we do, of, well, it was a different time, they didn't know any better. And I call bullshit on that because we did know better.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They just, we use that as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like you said, we didn't have social media back then to keep track of everybody's, I don't know, impulsiveness. As far as, I feel like sharing this really controversial personal thought I have. What could ever go wrong? But, like, seriously, though, if you go back far enough, I gotta question even that. Because I loved studying literature. Mm-hmm. I'm a nerd. It's fine. It's cool. Be a nerd. It's awesome. But if you go as far back as, like, when British literature first, like, really had its day, we're talking, of course, Shakespearean times, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the pinnacle of being a celebrity in the art world. The only other examples in that time are like your world-renowned painters and sculptors and things like that. But this was literary greatness, and then it was portrayed upon a stage. So actors became a thing then too. And we didn't have social media then, of course, but like we did have controversy. There were stories of Shakespeare possibly plagiarizing his mentor to get his big start. So, you brought up the point. I wonder who else is a horrible person that I've come to enjoy. And I'm starting to wonder, conversely, do you have to be a piece of shit in order to make good art?
God, I hope not.
I wonder that too. And I actually, there's an article, I'm hoping I didn't close it. I think there's an article in SciPost specifically asking, are celebrities more likely to be narcissistic, and are they more likely to be, because there have been studies that show that CEOs are more likely to be sociopathic or even psychopathic. And you do have to have a certain amount of delusion, to put it in that way, to present yourself to the world and say, here I am, everybody look at me. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. It just means that there's something in you that is, that feels that you are worthy of being seen. So even the most, I guess, like, even the kindest people, the most good, quote unquote, people have some level of delusion of grandeur in them, that they think that what they're doing is important enough or good enough to be presented on a large stage. But I don't think that has to equate to everything else, because just believing that you are such a good performer that you should be, at the Olympics, that you should be on the West End, that doesn't translate necessarily one-to-one to, I think that everybody with whom I want to have sex must have sex with me. So they're not one and the same, which is why I don't believe the idea that famous people must all have that in them. I think that famous people are humans. Everybody that we've spoken about is a human, and humans, whether they're famous or not, some of them are just really crappy. And there's also a lot of confirmation bias, where we are, because these things are so shocking to us, we are more likely to pay attention to them when they happen, and we're more likely to devote more of our brain power to that and to trying to figure out, why it's happening, and who these people really are, and our part in that, as far as propping them up. But that, we're not focusing on all of the other many, many people who haven't shown themselves to be that. Which, again, it's not saying that every last one of the people who haven't been brought to light is necessarily a good person, but it also doesn't mean that they are going to be bad people. But yeah, the fact that these things are so public and so big to us, it does matter. But we do have to ask ourselves, we do have to remember that there is goodness in the world, and that even beyond goodness, there's neutrality. There are people who may not be good, but they're not bad. They just exist. They're just kind of coasting along, just kind of being there. And that, for me, I find that heartening. I find that when I look at it that way, we're all just humans. Most of us doing our best. Some of us losing that battle. But yeah, I can't let myself be, I guess, drown in the idea that there isn't something redeemable about humans as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make a good point. And it's not that I lose sight of that or anything. It's like Michael Vick was an excellent example. Do I approve of what he did with the dogfighting? Absolutely not. I have zero tolerance for animal cruelty of any kind. But I do approve of the fact that he served his time and then went on to make amends. He can't erase what he did, but he can help, stop that from happening again in the future and understand the importance of it. And that is something, because I think what we're trying so hard to come to terms with is that in the case of Neil Gaiman and J.K. Rowling, is that we're dealing with a massive display of hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but that's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm
not a fan of hypocrisy, but it's true. I think it's a particular thing that the people who are most affected by art are most sensitive to things like hypocrisy. That, if we are the kind of people who will go to a convention, who will engage in cosplay and, read or write fanfic, like when you start to just fill so much of your mind space with devotion for, even if it's just not to the person, but to what they've done, to their art. I think that hypocrisy is, at least in my experience, very anecdotal, but the people I know who have been the most affected are people who have very little tolerance for hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
I just want to throw something out there, which is, and okay, so there's a very big thing about this, that these are people who are, the modern people are telling on themselves. This isn't allegations being brought forth. It's allegations being brought forth, and these people not shutting up about it, which is, going back to what Jen was talking about in the beginning, that they just keep burying themselves further. It's not even that the hypocrisy exists, it's that they won't keep putting it in our faces. So it's even harder to mentally disengage from it when they insist on being there publicly. And not quite to the same degree, but it's still really crappy. I don't know if you're aware of Stephen King's recent comments.
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah.
he tweeted, okay, the initial tweet said, why did Donald J. Trump cross the road? To see Haitians eating pets on the other side. So that's his little joke that he tweeted. And then his response, when people were like, what did you mean by that? Was, no, you guys, it's a joke. And if you guys don't get it, you're not very funny people. And his response was, the joke was about Trump. If you don't get that, you should see a doctor and get your sense of humor checked. Not only that, which is bad enough, but then he also posted a little graphic that says, anyone else notice, and this is supposed to be like, haha, snarky. Anyone else notice how all of the sudden, no one is eating our dogs and cats anymore. No one's performing sex change operations in schools or aborting babies after birth anymore. The price of eggs doesn't matter, and a recession isn't a bad thing. It's just a necessary growing pain, which is deflecting from the point, which is you said a racist thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to say, yeah, he's trying to say, but look at that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it drives me crazy when somebody does something like that on social media where they say something just stupid, whatever their intention was, it was stupid. And when they get backlash about it, they double and triple down. Like, can you just admit that you were wrong, learn from it, and move on? Because it would, quite frankly, it will go away faster if you just own up to it and be better.
Right,
that's a good point. I think it's a real mark of someone's character, especially as they become rich and famous and somewhat insulated from the struggles of the world. Can you admit when you're wrong? And can you learn from it? Like, if you looked for that, I think you would find that an alarming amount of people we are aware of because of celebrity status of some kind or another wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's an unfortunate, I don't know if it's a societal trait because we live in such an individualistic society that we struggle with admitting that we're wrong, but we really do. But I for one have never had as much growth like professionally as when I finally was like, you know what, I'm tired of trying to minimize my mistakes, defend them. I'm just going to admit them, and I'm going to learn from them. And sky's the limit then.
Right.
So I don't understand, like, what is it with people when they get to this status? Do they have so much influence, so much wealth, so much comfort that they can continue to behave like this because maybe they've stagnated as people? Like they don't have any they don't have any pressure to grow.
Right.
Right.
Good
And
point.
I think they're so aloof, so out of touch that
Yeah.
that they can't even see that they're wrong anymore.
I think in Stephen King's case in particular, first of all, you have the boomer aspect, which, you know, it may be like a silly thing. It's like, oh, okay, boomer. But realistically, people in his age bracket, because of the way that they grew up, particularly white people and especially white men, when they are and have been seen as generally liberal and generally on the right side of history, so to speak, they think that they can say whatever they want, and it's coming from a good place. Therefore, you must take it that way. And his thought, and you know, I'm not his psychologist, and I'm not in his brain, so what do I know? But the way that I'm seeing it is, in his brain, he is trying to make a point about Trump, but he's throwing Haitians under the bus. He doesn't see it that way because he's like, I am just talking about Trump. Whereas objectively, you clearly are not. Not only are you talking about a specific group of people, but you're talking about a specific group of people who is actively being targeted.
My guess here, in trying to really work to paint this in as favorable a light as possible as a point of consideration only, is that maybe he was trying to point out how ridiculous that claim was for Trump to make in the first place. But you don't choose a "why did the chicken cross the road" joke format to do that. It's much too simplistic to not be misinterpreted. And
Right.
So as an author of renown, you should know that. Now, I think he made a mistake, and I think that he's doubling down on that mistake. I haven't reached the point where I have with Neil Gaiman and J.K. Rowling to think that he is a terrible person. But, oh boy, he's got some work to do to clean that up. And I really hope that he gets around to doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at, and I've never been a huge fan of Stephen King, just for a lot of reasons, but also because if you look at the actual text that he has written, when he has described Black people, it is racist. And he will swear up and down that, no, but I'm saying that his skin glitters. Isn't that a good thing? But it's like you are talking about a Black person as if they're a mythical being. You're in fact describing them as mythical. That is also a problem. So, and I'm not going to get into a whole thing about Stephen King or about horror and science fiction authors in general and how they talk about people of color and Black people.
Oh, but yeah, they're special, all right.
Yeah, they make a lot of these, they write all of these things trying to say, I'm an ally. I'm your friend. I think that you're special. And it's like you are painting humans as otherworldly beings that does not contribute to society as a whole, seeing them as human beings.
There's that hypocrisy again.
Yeah, and it still paints them as other.
Right, mm-hmm. Exactly.
It doesn't include them. It sets them apart and excludes them. And going back to that joke, I mean, you're making a point about one person at the expense of a whole group of other people. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah, innocent group of people. If he wanted to make a joke at the expense of the MAGAs, I personally don't give a shit about that. And I think his joke would have, I don't know, actually maybe have been a joke instead of just
cringe.
Dude.
Yeah.
Very because cringy.
I will present a different point of view on that, the mirror image of Francesca Lee, who has all of those videos of themselves singing their song about the leopards eating faces.
Mm-hmm.
And they are all about, it'll start with the video about somebody who voted for Trump being like, I voted for him and he said that he wouldn't do this, but this is exactly what he did. And then they'll chime in with their song about, I never thought the leopards would eat my face. And that is not the same thing as Stephen King talking about Haitian people, because these are people who did this to themselves against advice not to, against all of the information that they had to not do this to themselves. But Haitian people are just trying to live their lives, and they're already, the whole hubbub about eating pets has for the most part kind of quieted down. Bringing it back up is not helping anything.
Exactly. And when that whole thing started too, all I could think was like, haven't we done this already with Asians?
Right.
Like, really? You can't even think of like something new and better to be racist with? Like,
right.
You're just going to rehash. I suppose. Yeah, I suppose we are like the generation of reboots. So,
well, you know what they say? There's no such thing as an original idea anymore, right?
And we just keep proving it over and over again in the worst ways possible.
I do have to say that we did get some great TikToks from crossovers of Haitian and Asian creators making TikToks of themselves, like kind of like dancing on their way to something, and it's like they're dancing on we're both being accused of this horrible thing, but they present it in a I'm not describing it right, but trust me, it's really funny when those creators do it.
TikTok's filled with a bunch of very funny, very imaginative people, and I can't even fathom how much time it takes to do some of these skits, the recording, I'm impressed in the best way. Y'all have too much time on your hands, and good for you. That's a good thing. I'm happy for you because I don't. I wish I had time to do those things because they're fantastic. So I haven't seen those videos, Carla, but now I'm going to have to go look them up.
I'll find some and I'll send them your way.
Yes.
Not too many, I promise. Just a couple.
But I'm on there regularly doom scrolling, and so I am checking. I do get all the messages because there was that point where I was like, I can't open it because there's going to be like 32 messages, and I don't know what to do with that. With Stephen King, that was just dude, I get what you were trying to do. You just did it wrong. And again, doubling down and just being like, what? I'm funny. You're not funny. That's not
right.
No, that's not how you do that.
No.
So it's disappointing, but I think he's not like a lost cause.
Right.
Right.
Because I think that just simply goes back to the thing about people who put themselves in the public eye that way, having something about them that says, I deserve to take up space publicly like this. And part of that is saying, well, you can't keep me down. And it kind of manifests itself in this way. However, it's awful, but it's still on the scale of horrible things that people do, it is low bananas versus what other people have done to other people.
But it still needs to be called out. And that is one thing that I do appreciate the internet for, is being able to right away just being like, yo, that was not cool, that was wrong, or just straight up like, you're a piece of shit, Joanne. Why do you keep fucking talking, Joanne? Did you get the black mold fixed, Joanne? And the fact that bitch has a male pen name, are you fucking kidding me?
God.
Back to the hypocrisy again. See, now I'm getting loud.
He's a misogynist.
Yes. And I honestly, I don't understand that mindset of her or any other like phobes. Like, why do you give a fuck?
Right.
Why do you give a shit? What do these people
understand.
do?
Like,
I don't get it. Why is it such an obsession?
Hurting you?
Right.
Yeah.
How can you write a story full of magic and craziness and then be like, what?
Trans people
have gender dysphoria? I don't understand. Like, come on. Like, seriously.
The idea...
But then again, if you look at her stories, I was aware enough while I was reading them that, like, hey, there's still some prejudice here. Okay? Bad-Eye Moody, anyone? The only obviously disabled person in the entirety of the Harry Potter franchise, and he's a kooky, crazy, deformed, just weirdo.
Right.
that everyone is afraid of. Like, okay, I guess we're back to Bond villains again.
Right.
Yeah, I never got into Harry Potter. I bought like the movie DVD box set a couple of years ago because it was on it was like a super Prime Day sale or some shit. So I got it like for super cheap. We watched the movies. They were great, but it's like that was just not a rabbit hole that I ever fell down into. And now I'm glad. I don't have to go through that. I can't imagine, especially when she first started running her fucking mouth.
Yeah.
Just what the fans were going through at that time. I can't even fucking imagine. And it's like, yeah, we have, for good or bad, and whether we should or not, we do hold some celebrities up on a pedestal to a higher standard and everything. And it's like every day I hear or find out about someone that I liked that did a bad thing. Whatever, however bad or terrible or worse, or just like, really? And it's disappointing on various levels every single fucking time. And it's almost always the men, almost always the fucking men. And I'm just like, all right, men are basic. They're all the same. They're just, as I've said for years, they're just tall boys. And it's like, not in the realm of like some of these terrible things that some of these, like Neil has done and everything. But it's like, this is going to sound so silly comparatively speaking. But when I found out about Dave Grohl's love child and him cheating on his wife, I was so fucking disappointed.
Same.
So disappointed. I'm like, dude, you were like the dad rock of, rock and roll. You're like the nice guy. You're like, you troll the Westboro Baptist motherfuckers, and that's great. And now you're just basic. You just like every other fucking dude going through some midlife crisis bullshit. I get it. Your bestie died, but that's not a fucking excuse. And that happened like years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You can only hang on to that excuse for so long.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he also has a history of a lot of cheating. So he also never learned from his mistakes.
Right.
I suppose. And it's, that's just...
He just couldn't keep the cap on the pen, and that's disappointing, because you would think he would have learned by now.
Expression. I'm
And
sorry.
it's like, and I love the Foo Fighters. My friends and I, we've seen them a whole mess of times. I have only recently begun listening to a couple of Foo Fighter songs because I was that fucking mad at him, and I was that disappointed in him. But I heard someone the other day blasting some Foo outside down the street, and I was like, all right, keeps popping up on my Spotify, and I keep skipping. But then again, there's these songs that have a deeper meaning for me. And I'm like, I don't want to get rid of those songs. Why do men have to be trash and complicate things? Just, keep the cap on, keep it in your pants.
Be better.
Be better.
Yes.
Do
Just
better.
be better.
My God.
Yeah. Is it really that difficult?
Apparently.
And stop the, because when I was talking earlier about, own up to it, and learn from it and grow and move on, legitimately own up to it and try to learn from it, move on. Don't keep using that as I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I made it. Because you keep doing that and you lose all credibility. It's got to be genuine.
Exactly. And it's like, I'd rather have them shut the fuck up for 3 months to come up with maybe something thoughtful.
Right.
Than just to keep running their fucking mouth. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's one thing where I will say that that's partly the fault of the public, because so many times people will sit there and, say amongst themselves, why haven't you said anything? It's been 14 hours. Why haven't you come out with a statement? And it's like, exactly like you said, I would rather that they take the time to prepare a measured statement where they've actually done some reflection and started on the road to becoming better people and to making amends in some way, or to, doing something restorative in the wake of what they've done, than just somebody having a publicist prepared statement and being like, did a bad thing. Sorry about that. I'll try to be a better person. Are we still friends? Like,
Well, okay. I agree. Like, taking some time to actually reflect and learn and grow and all of that is important. But you're a celebrity. So here's what you have to do. You have to acknowledge your mistake. And you have to say, I am now going to take some time to process this for myself and everyone else affected and make sure that I show up for them. And when the time is right, I will address this publicly.
I think,
but
yeah.
no, just what I was getting at though is that the public needs to be more patient in that regard.
Yeah.
That's fine, but also not the four of us, because clearly we are going about this the right way and having the right thoughts. But the public at large really needs to have more patience with the process and not say, okay, you are a terrible person because I didn't like your statement. It's like, okay, they just came up with this on the fly and there's a lot more work that needs to be done. You can't hang everything about this person on this thing that they said, 12 hours after you found out about the terrible thing that they did.
Well, you have to remember too that some of the people wanting this stuff, it's Schadenfreude,
Yeah.
They're just enjoying the fact that someone else is going through a hard time. And then there's other people who just love the gossip.
Yeah.
And it's dopamine chasing. And honestly, everything about the way that we entertain ourselves is dopamine chasing. So if these people are part of our entertainment, then that is what we expect of them. And I'm not saying it's right, but you're going to have a really hard time teaching people to be patient who have lived in a world that doesn't require it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just feel like humans in general, we're very finicky motherfuckers. There's no pleasing us, especially in this day and age when we're used to getting things instantly and not having to wait for anything, and where it's just all like me, what I want and what I have to say and blah, 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 I say on my podcast. And there's just no pleasing us, because yes, if they take too long to come up with a thoughtful, genuine response, then it's like, well, what took you so long? Who wrote this? Where'd you come up with this bullshit? You come out too quick with it, and it's like, oh, so you were set and ready with that copy and paste apology or statement or whatever. In that respects, I have a little bit of sympathy, because it's like, there's no pleasing the people. I mean, look how big TMZ got because we love trash, drama, bullshit, and they're all chaos, and they're almost always the first ones with the celebrity bullshit. And I will hand it to them, for the most part, for being the first ones, they're really good at it.
Yeah, like I'm really annoyed at how often they're right in their gossip. It's like, I don't want you to be right so frequently, and yet you are, and I hate that.
They're like the modern day Nostradamus.
Yes,
We should start asking them, like, okay, we know you're first on the scene and you're going to get it right when it happens, but can you predict it? Come on, guys, challenge yourselves. Like,
get them to like level up,
right?
But this whole kind of thing, it reminds me of like classical mythology, where the gods had very human flaws, and we do give our celebrities somewhat godlike status, don't we? So maybe part of all of this is that we somehow want them to be flawed because that makes them more like us, and therefore we are more like them. But then if they're too flawed, it's like, whoa, back it up a little bit.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I was gonna say something, but I forgot, so it's okay. Oh, again, about like TMZ, Nostradamus. It was TMZ that had Kanye in their office several years ago going on about how slavery was a choice.
Right.
That was fucking wild.
No. Indentured servitude was a choice, but it was a trap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. That was fucking wild. And he, one of the staff members did call him out, and he did it I would not have had that much composure. I'd been like, the fuck are you talking about?
Was he equating the two, slavery and indentured servitude? Like,
no,
did he think they were the same thing?
No, he just said slavery was a choice.
Yeah, the people stayed slaves because they didn't make the choice to be free.
What? Oh,
The guy's out there.
That's some think it and think it, believe it, and it'll happen bullshit right there. Oh my
Right.
God.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Yeah,
like, how
what
is he
that?
not
The law of
canceled yet?
attraction? Like if you think it, you'll manifest it, and therefore
Yeah.
it's
That
true.
magical
Like,
thing.
no, that's not how that works.
I wish that was how it worked.
I mean,
I would-
sometimes,
I
yeah.
would think of better things, though.
Yes.
Like I'm going to
Free
find the cure for
tacos.
cancer.
Oh, yes. Cure for cancer. Yes. I said free tacos, but yes.
I mean,
let's cure cancer.
That could be the cure for
Small,
cancer.
and
Is
I'm
all I'm
probably
saying.
Well, we
starting
don't know.
way too big.
Right?
You're right, Paula. We don't know.
We don't know.
Maybe free tacos lead to the cure to cancer.
There
Oh
we go.
Yes.
my God.
Because
The
if you're
tacos
basic-
to
someone's
cure
brain-
pipeline has not been explored.
Yeah.
Because like if your basic needs are met, and food is one of those,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
are free to pursue
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah. Keep that brain fed, and you'll come up with So
I love it. And on the next
Look at
episode,
us saving the world.
it's free tacos.
I'm a hero. Now watch me turn into a hypocrite.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right?
Oh no.
Oh man, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've enjoyed it a lot. I wish we could actually have it in person and just get that energy off of each other. But this has been amazing. I love it. I think we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. So we'll just go around. Any final thoughts? Like on Jerry Springer, any final thoughts? Paula?
The only other thought that I had was, at what point do we get where we seem to give people enough time and we forgive. Is there a line where it becomes unforgivable? Because
That is a good question.
it doesn't seem to be that way. It seems like we just give them enough time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a really important question that people need to reflect on: is when is enough, and when do we just hold them accountable and not let them come back from it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess this makes me human rather than divine, so there go my aspirations. But there are things that I can't forgive, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think we should, and I think that's a personal thing, but I think we need to decide for ourselves, individually, what is that line that you cannot ever forgive?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sorry, but some things are unforgivable. I'm looking at you, Neil Gaiman.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I would, in that same vein, Kevin Spacey, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
what was it? A few months ago, he was like recast in a movie. Guy Pearce had made some comments or allusions to Kevin Spacey being gross towards him. And then the shit that came out of that motherfucker's mouth. And he's just like, what? No, you're almost like you're not my type. Like,
Right.
ew,
Gross.
what the fuck,
Like,
man?
I did it to all those
gross.
other people, but not to you, because I don't like you like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So for me, like, done with Kevin Spacey,
Yeah.
for sure. 100, like, I mean, not that there was ever going to be like, well, maybe.
I feel vindicated because
I felt that
alert.
way about Russell Brand because I always hated that motherfucker.
Spoiler alert, okay? I didn't hate Kevin Spacey per se, but when I saw The Usual Suspects, you guys, I was so excited to finally see someone with cerebral palsy as a main character in a movie, and for that to turn out to be fake, oh, it crushed me. And I have never looked at Kevin Spacey the same way again, and I feel vindicated because see, he's a terrible person. That's the only way he made that work.
Oh, Carla, any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, my final thought is we need to stop following famous people. I think that we give them enough attention by consuming their art. I don't think that we need to give them further attention by following them on social media. We don't need to know everybody's thoughts. And that goes not just for famous people, but for each other. We don't need to know every single thing that everybody is thinking. We are entirely too online. We are entirely too dependent on admiration and approval to the point where we are not, we, again, the four of us, fantastic people would never do this. But societally, we've gotten to a point where we are just too invested in the minutia of each other's lives. And that's unnecessary. It's not healthy for either the people putting that information out there or those of us consuming it. Skits are great. Jokes, fantastic. We don't need to be in each other's pockets like that 24/7.
Well said.
Absolutely.
And Laura?
Oh man, I don't know where to go from there.
You're just like, ditto.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, you know, my job depends on our technology dependency. So, at the risk of being a hypocrite,
It's already starting.
I'm kidding. But you're right. You're right. I think we've forgotten how to make the most of our own lives because we're too busy watching people destroy their own. And there's almost this one-upmanship, like, well, how can I do that better? Here's a thought. Don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. All right. Well, that's pretty much all. I mean, for me, ditto. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've loved every single second of it. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me. And I wanted to end today's very special episode on a bit more of a positive note. So we're going to go around and we're going to share like a positive thing, whether it's something we've watched, read, something that's happened, something we've done, just a good thing. Just a good thing. So, Carla, what's a good thing you have to share with us?
A good thing that I have to share is that I'm starting my own podcast, the one that I was talking about earlier. Okay, real quick. It's just me talking about whatever I feel like talking about. I'm not putting this out there to get famous. I don't care if the only people who listen to it are 5 of my friends and 3 of my relatives. I just want to yap into the void and have fun doing it. So if you feel like listening to somebody yap into the void and having fun doing it, please give it a listen. If not, no hard feelings. You just have terrible taste. I'm kidding. No.
It was a joke, everyone. It was a joke.
See what I was actually saying? No. So that's going to be out there. There will honestly not be a lot of social media related to it because I don't want to do all of that. I just want to have a good time.
It's like a speakeasy.
Yeah.
If you know where to find it.
Exactly.
Yeah, very
like that.
exclusive. I like it.
Oh, I like that even better.
I feel like
Find
now
me
it
or
needs to
don't.
have like a weird knock to get to play it or something. Like,
Right?
something Black Mirror-y. Ah,
Oh my
Oh, I
gosh.
love Black Mirror.
me too. All right. And Laura, what's a good thing in your world?
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to my oldest son. He's returned home from his U.S. Marines training. He's a reservist because his primary goal was to become a police officer. Don't worry, a good one.
One of the good apples.
We need more of those. So
And he achieved it. He will be sworn in as a police officer next week, Monday.
Yay! Congratulations. Aw.
Good job,
Paula.
James.
Yeah, good job, James. Yay! You're the only blue life that matters. I can help myself.
She was just joking, everybody.
It was a joke.
It was just a joke.
what, you didn't get it?
Right?
What were
God,
Stephen
maybe you
King's
should be
words?
smart. No.
You didn't get it. Go see a doctor.
Yeah, go see a doctor about your sense of humor issues.
And Paula, good thing in your world.
Good thing in my world. I am, well, now that I have upgraded my computer situation and no longer having the issues that I was, I am able to get back into one of my other loves, which is gaming and hanging out with my friends online and getting back into some of the games that we enjoyed. And that's kind of like my just like safe space, kind of, just hanging out with my friends and just, yeah. So that's my happy place right now, and the happy thing in my life right now. So
Nice.
Awesome. Love it. Let's see, a good thing in my world, which is funny because it's like, this is my dumb idea. And I'm like, that's a good thing. Well, I suppose so. I normally work Saturday mornings at the library, and I have got this Saturday off. So I'm very much looking forward to not doing anything.
Yeah.
An extra day of waking up to no alarm, which is nice. And I'm just gonna be a fucking bum for the morning at the very least. Hang out in my bathrobe and drink my coffee and be lazy, and kind of like how I spent Mother's Day, but on a Saturday.
I love that.
that's awesome.
I'm so excited.
It's Mother's Day part 2.
Yeah. The mothering. No. And then on Sunday, my friend Jill and I will be going to go see Sinners finally. So I'm very excited.
I'm going to go see that with my daughter. We got to compare
you?
notes later.
Oh, yes. Your daughter is so adorable, by the way. When Laura and her daughter stopped out for my birthday, your daughter was talking about the movie Tarot and the way she kept trying to pronounce it. She's like, I don't know how it's pronounced. Tarot? Tarot?
Tarot, like carrot?
I was like, oh my God, you are just the cutest thing. Tarot as in tarot cards, but that's all right. So I hope you guys have a good time. And yeah, we'll definitely have to compare notes. So. All right. Well, that is going to do it for all of us. Again, thank you, ladies, so much for being here and having this conversation. This was great. And I know we probably have much more to say, and maybe we'll be back and have more things to say. We'll just wait for the next celebrity to fuck up and then we'll reconvene. So
I don't think we'll have to wait long.
Yeah,
it's inevitable. I haven't checked my social medias yet. It's like the new weekly. Oh, these could be Patreon episodes. Oh my God. No. But yeah, so that's going to do it for us today. Again, thank you, ladies, for being here. And listeners, let me know what you thought of today's episode, what you think of these trash motherfuckers. If there's anyone else on the list or maybe whatever, just let me know. Send an email to mystreamingbubble@gmail.com and you can share that information with me. You can request shows or movies to be covered. You can even ask to be tolerated, and I'll think about tolerating you. Just kidding. And make sure you're following the podcast. So My Streaming Bubble can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Just search My Streaming Bubble and I will pop on up there for you. And then make sure you are following it and you are listening to it on podcast players, and make sure you share and rate and review. And then when you're done doing that, do all of those same things for the other podcast, Twin It, that I co-host with Aaron from It's a Fandom Thing, where we test our twinningness by guessing how the other feels about different horror movies. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and you can listen on most podcast players. So until next time, Bubblies, thank you all for listening and keep streaming. Goodbye.
Bye.
Everyone say goodbye.
Goodbye.
You're so good at this.
Oh, fantastic. It has been a while.